went back and forth, and I decided, yes, it's the end of April, but let's reflect on quarter one. And honestly, I don't think it's unreasonable to take some time to reflect. Like, now I don't have recency bias. I can just go into quarter one and really think, yes, this is what stood out. And, and these are the things I've done, and this is what I want to pivot with, or this is how I feel good. And yeah, also, yes, I'm wearing a Cavs hoodie. It's that time of year. Go Cavs. This is also from a company called Homage, which makes like the softest shirts. They are not sponsoring me. Ryan just buys me things from Homage, and I'm just like, yes. Yes. So, I figured let's start with my 3 favorite books of the month, and they did all happen in March. And I did look at the 4.5 stars, but truly, none of the 4.5 stars even come close to touching these 3. And I'm trying to like figure out where I want to order them. And so I think I'm just going to go in the order I read them, because ranking is for the end of the year. Ranking is not for right now. And I love these all for such different reasons. So let's start with Ocean's Gadori. I love you, Ocean's Gadori. Ocean's Gadori was a book where I started reading it and I was like, yeah. I like exploring this place. I like these people. Like, I instantly loved Ocean. All right. So this was a sci-fi book that came out last year that I could not stop seeing this cover places. Like, I saw it in so many bookstores, and then eventually I was at a bookstore with Ryan for my birthday, and I'm like, screw it, it's coming home. It's coming home. I love this cover. I think it's so pretty. And luckily, I love the book. And yeah, I love Ocean. I love Tio. I actually got to see my best friend today, and like Tio and Ocean have like my dynamic with my best friend. We just went and got food. And then we just chatted for a few hours, and he had to get his flight. I love that platonic representation. I just enjoyed this story. Immersion reading it, I was just invested. I was just in. I was locked in. And I loved it for that. I loved that it was effortless to consume and enjoy this story, which I know is a weird bar to have, but not every story does that to me. And not so instantly. And it just, when I can see my life reflected in art, I do feel something. Like, I don't think that's weird to say. And yet there was so much to explore. I'm not in some futuristic society where I think Korea seems to have won the space race and things like that. So if you like platonic relationships, if you like space adventures, kind of, but it is more focused on like the character stuff. And if you're excited for a series, because this needs a second book and I have the arc and I'm hoping it's fun. I'm very excited for the second book. And yeah, it's just, I just was so invested. Like, there's emotional stuff where I'm also like angry because I'm just like, stop it. Stop being mean. So yeah, it made me feel things. The next one I read on my vacation, and I read with my eyeballs, and it was just like, it's everything you want. You're on a vacation and you want to have a book you want to read because you have time to read the book, right? You have free time. You don't have to wake up super early. You can wake up early and read the book. Like, that's what you want. And I had it, and that's The Incandescent by Emily Tesh. This comes out, I think, in May. I don't actually know for sure. I have an arc around here somewhere, and in theory, it would tell me. But the chaos that is the floor around me, like, I am waiting for my shelves, and I don't know when they'll get here, okay? Like, I'm gone the old school, paying a carpenter route, and it's going to take a minute. So I have a bunch of books around me. And this, Some Desperate Glory was a book I read last year by this author, and it just, like, surprised me. Not like a favorite of all time, but I really liked it. And so I heard this was coming out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to read this. I'm going to try The Incandescent. And I was, again, instantly like, yes, I'm in. Let's go. It's about this director of magic / professor at this, not a university, it's a boarding school for mundane and magical folk. And in this world, if you are magical and don't know how to control or protect yourself, you can summon demons. And it's just casual. So we need to teach people not to do that. And you can learn to use magic even if you're not innately magical. And so this story is from the director's perspective. She's a workaholic. This is a year in her life at this school. You get to see her relationships with other people. You get to see how she handles catastrophes. You get to see how she handles her mundane life. And she has some stuff from her past. And some things get out of hand because she keeps ignoring how things aren't sustainable. And I loved it. I loved it a lot. And I read it with my eyeballs. I didn't even read that many books with my eyeballs this year. And like, especially if they're not a romance and I read you and I was engaged the entire time with just my eyeballs, you are a special. You are a special book. So that's The Incandescent. And then the final book in the Verkosigan saga. And yes, I know I owe people a should you read. I lost the notes. I have to rewrite the notes. And I need to find the energy to film it. It's coming in May. I can guarantee you that review will be out in May. This is the final book. I had to read it because the end of Cryoburn does a thing that I'm like, I need to process. And I know this book will process. And boy, does it process. It's everything Bejeweled does with quiet, introspective, domestic books. Like, if you like her adventure books, this is not an adventure book. But I don't need her books to be adventure. If anything, I love, like, the domestic books. And, like, when they have, like, a little bit of action. And there's not even that much action in this. I just loved this long, falling action for a series that deserved a long goodbye. That's how I felt. It delivered. I disagree with all 1-star reviews pretty violently. 3-star reviews, that's fine. Like, whatever. Those 1-star reviews, especially because you made it this far in Red Verkosigan, you missed the entire point. You truly did. I know you guys aren't watching my video, but you did. Another thing I thought I'd talk about are 6 releases that I read that came out in the first quarter. So these are 6 books that I read that came out in the first quarter, and I guess I'll just tell you if I liked them or not. So Onyx Storm came out. I thought it was fun. I think my order is Fourth Wing, Honor Storm, Iron Flame in terms of enjoyment. It was interesting because I also did genre breakdowns. I put this in a fantasy category and not romance because the romance is the weakest part of this book because it's just rehashing old ground. It's not really the fourth front. It's actually a fetch quest. This is a fantasy book. It's not extremely well crafted, but it is fun for me. I had a great time. I read this during our 2 to 3 day snow day and knitting, and I had a blast. And then we have Rebel Witch, which is the sequel to Heartless Hunter, or The Crimson Moth if you're in the UK. And I thought this was great. This was super fun. So this I put in romance because I didn't want to make a romantasy category for 2 books. And because this for me, I read it because of the romance. Like, it has some fantasy stuff going on. I think the witch magic's cool. Like, it has a good world trappings. Arguably, this is a stronger fantasy than anything in the Fourth Wing series. But I was mainly there for the romance. And the romance tropes in Rebel Witch, pretty fun. Pretty fun. I think I still prefer the tropes in the first book, but that's just my cup of tea. You know, I do love, like, the Batman Catwoman dynamic that exists in the first book. I'm a sucker for that. Like, see me loving the Rook and the Rose. Yeah, I come built that way. That's what I want. I also read Green Teeth. And a lot of these, that's the one I read on audio from Libro FM, so their link is down below. They are basically an audio subscription where you get a credit a month, you buy a book. So it's a great alternative to Audible, and you also get to support any local bookstore you want. So there you go. I always support the Brookline Booksmith because I miss them endlessly. So Green Teeth is fun. It's a story about a lake monster and what she does when she decides to make friends with a witch that people try to drown in her, and how they try to save the town, and also what it's like for magic and myth to leave the world. It's good. I think the main character is fun. I do think the comp that if you like T. Kingfisher, you'll like this is like, it's like 85% true. I think there's overlap there. I think there's a lot of overlap. It's not T. Kingfisher, but like, it's pretty good. The Unworthy, easily my least favorite. I also listened to this on Libro FM. I just didn't get anything from it. I don't think it's like offensive. I don't think it's bad. I just didn't get anything. It's got the classic framed narrative. Well, not classic. I mean, it is classic. It's this woman in a post-apocalyptic, anti-feminine future in this weird cult that's very about self-harm and being mean and punishing, writing her story at this moment and hiding it in a tree. And you hear about her story through these journal entries and how she kind of finds connection and love. But also, it's just like very traumatizing and violent and dark and bleak. And it's not that I dislike those things. I just didn't get anything from it personally. So, and I think that kind of tracks because I had similar experience with Tender as the Flesh, where I'm just like, yeah, this is not bad. But you're not doing anything for me that I haven't had done for me in other genre things that you are like, you know? So that was that. The next one is the romance that I read in the first quarter that came out, Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I liked this one quite a bit. I liked this one quite a bit. I think Ali Hazelwood's getting stronger for me and my tastes. Like, I thought the people problems were great. I actually really liked the Olympics backdrop. I thought that was really fun. I liked how we dealt with problems. I think the only thing I really wanted was dual POV like we got in Not in Love. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It did what I wanted to do. I had something to read for 24 hours that I couldn't put down. So yeah. And then the last one was The Unkillable Princess, the sequel to The Immortality Thief. So The Immortality Thief is more sci-fi horror on a spaceship, like action horror spaceship, like Aliens or something like that. And this is more heisty sci-fi, where we have to like accomplish a task. And that means sometimes we go to different places and talk to different people and get the things and like, oh no, this is happening. So now we have to pivot. But at its core, it's about this platonic trio that I adore so much. It's at its best when they are together. And Sean is a himbo who doesn't know he's a himbo, which is pretty great. So yeah, now like we'll end this with a couple stats, things I wanted to just track-ish. I read 29 books. Of those 29, 10 of them were on my physical TBR. That feels reasonable. That feels kind of good. I didn't have a set number for the physical TBR, but that just feels good. I don't hate that. Especially because I bought books today. I added books to the TBR today. It's indie bookstore day today, and I had a grand old time. And then I really wanted to keep an eye on my diversity reading, and I'm glad I did check in, because that was a thing I said in my goals video at the start of the year, that I check in every quarter, because it's not where I want it to be, so I need to make sure I'm being more intentional. So although I read 29 books, I only read from 22 authors, because I don't know if you know this, but I read a bunch of Verkosigan. So that's like all one author. And I read a lot of sequels, right? So like Taryn Hunt only got counted once, and like, etc. And so 8 of the books, like I think about 37% of what I read were by authors of color. And it's a very broad category. Like I'm not being very picky there. So that's not where I want it to be. I would like it to be closer to 50%. So I think I need to actively just make sure when I'm crafting my TBRs, I have that in my head. And I looked at my audio versus reading with eyes versus immersion / mixed. I tried playing around with the mixed. I didn't like that category. It was something I was thinking about in my goals video. Surprising, not me. Only 7 of the books were read only with my eyeballs. The vast majority had audio assist in some capacity. So 6 of them were immersion, so eyeballs and listening to some extent. And 16 of these books were audio only. And this makes sense to me. I commute via car now. So books are audio for an hour a day. And then not only for an hour a day, like before I was only going to work like Monday through Thursday. But then the second half of the semester, I was going to work Monday through Friday. And then I was knitting because I have already completed 3 projects this year, because apparently that's where my mental health has been at. And so I listened to a lot of books while I was doing that. And also, I primarily consume Verkosigan via audio, and a lot of these are Verkosigan books. Another thing I looked at was genre breakdown, which I thought was just kind of fun. My most read genre is science fiction, so am I officially, a science fiction booktuber now? I don't know. But I feel like I can, feel like I'm not just someone who reads fantasy and dabbles in science fiction. I think I do give both of them equal love. I read about 7 fantasy. So that tracks me. I think I've read more fantasy since. So I wouldn't be surprised if like quarter 2 it was a little more flippity-floppity. I read 5 horror, which is nice because I do love reading horror. So I'm glad I'm still like getting that in there. I read 1 literary genre and literary / general. That's what I marked it as. And I read more in the second quarter already. I can already tell because I think I've read 2. And my goal is to read like 6 to 8 a year. So as long as I'm trying to get to like 1 to 2, 2 to 3. There was 1 book I did read that I had on my goal, which was Love's Medicine. I didn't get to the other books, so I should tentatively put that back on my radar. Should do that. I also did just buy House of Spirits by Isabel Allende, so that's a good one for this category. I've been meaning to read more of her. And then I read 4 romance books, and that includes the 2 fantasy romance. Because I've read 2 contemporary romance and 2 fantasy romance. So, I don't mind that breakdown. So that's where things are. I'm not trying to do any huge overhauls, just trying to be more intentional about the authors I am reading. And yeah, let me know how your first quarter went. Do you have any favorites? I definitely had, I think, a pretty good reading month. I didn't look up the average rating. It doesn't feel helpful to me. In general, I know March was the strongest. And I know I've had wins in most months. I've had a good time. I feel like actually, I guess I'll really find out when I get to the April wrap up. But I feel like April's kind of been my weakest, honestly. Like, nothing bad has happened, but nothing great has happened. Like, April's been very good. It's been fine. And I think I like to have a little bit more, like, extremes in my art consumption. I don't know why. I feel like I'm not alone in that, though. If you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, leave a basketball emoji for the Cavs. I love the Cavs. Didn't you know? I love basketball. I don't actually know if you guys know I like basketball, but I really like basketball. The one and only readathon I've ever done for this channel is the March Madness brackets. But that was eons ago, and I get very tired from doing readathons. So if you ever want readathons, come see me on Patreon. I do a couple a year over there. But otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!